What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Totally Random. In this episode, I am going to be counting down the top 5 best comic strips ever made, or more specifically and more accurately, my favorite comic strips of all time from number 5 to number 1. Let's get right into this. At number 5, we have Garfield by Jim Davis. Now, this is a comic strip that has been running since the 70s, but Garfield follows a cat named Garfield who likes to sleep and eat. He hates Mondays, he hates rain, he has an owner named John, and there's a few other characters including Odie and Liz that are in this comic strip, and I'm putting it in my list because some Garfield comic strips are actually pretty clever. However, I think the material that runs this comic strip is getting really dry, and a lot of the comic strips that come out in this strip nowadays aren't very good and they're not very funny, at least for me, but the older comic strips of Garfield are really good, and that's why it's on my list. At number 4, we have Dilbert by Scott Adams. This has been running since 1989, and I'm pretty sure that's right, and this follows Dilbert as an office worker working in an office and his adventures with his colleagues. And when I was reading Dilbert for the first time when I was like 10 or something, of course I didn't get a lot of the humor because a lot of the humor in this strip is really complex and it takes an intelligent person to know what it is. But as I grew older, like 3 years older, I began to enjoy it a lot more because I began getting a lot of the smaller bits of humor that's enlaced in this strip. Overall, Dilbert is a very funny and intelligent comic strip, and that's why it's my number 4. At number 3, we have Peanuts. How can I not have this on my list of the best comic strips ever? I mean, now this comic strip follows the life of Charlie Brown and Lucy and Linus and Schroeder and Snoopy and Woodstock, and if you don't like Peanuts, then that's okay, but, why don't you? In my opinion, Peanuts is one of the best comic strips ever, and for sure it's the most iconic and well-known comic strip of all time, and that's why it's my number 3. At number 2, we have a strip that I don't think enough people read, to be honest, and that is Pearls Before Swine by Stefan Pastis. By the way, I apologize if I pronounced that name incorrectly because Stefan Pastis is a genius, and he's the king of bad puns. Literally, if you like bad puns, aka if you like my videos because of the puns in them, read this comic strip, because this comic strip has the best puns ever, oh my goodness. And apart from the puns in this strip, it's a pretty hard strip to describe. So it's basically about pig and rat and goat and occasionally zebra and alligator, and actually Stefan Pastis, the cartoonist, as a cartoon character in the strip, and as I said, there's bad puns, and there's social statements, and there's irony, and everything that makes a good comic strip. And I just love it because it's so clever, it's so fresh, it's so clean, it's easy to read, it's fun to read, and it's one of my all-time favorite comic strips. At number 1, we have a comic strip that, in my opinion, is superior to any comic strip ever made, ever. And that comic strip is, of course, Calvin and Hobbes by Bill Watterson, running from 85 to 95. Now, this comic strip follows the adventures of Calvin, a little 6-year-old first grader, and his imaginary tiger that comes to life in his imagination, Hobbes, who is like the most likable tiger I have ever read about. And it's their journey through school and life, and it makes statements on social events and the issues with the world, and it's just funny because it's a 6-year-old first grader talking about all this. And it's that combined with really intelligent humor and a lot of visual gags throughout this strip, and it's just so good. Seriously, if you have not heard of Calvin and Hobbes, please read a few strips of it, and if you don't like it, then, that's okay, but I still think it's the best comic strip ever made, and I don't believe that any other comic strip will ever be better than this. And there you go, folks, my top 5 favorite comic strips of all time. But anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode, totally random, and if you did, please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Also, if you have some favorite comic strips, of course, leave them in the comments below. And other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video again, and I will see you guys later. Goodbye!